Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Ask Us Anything at the Wolves of Alt Street. I am your host, Nexus, and today we are talking to NovoDeFi and ProfessorHodl representing their team. How are you doing, brother?
I'm good. I am good. You can, I created the handle just kind of on a whim. Feel free to call me by my real name, Andrew. Again, trying to start being more transparent in the space. So, but ProfessorHodl works as well. But I'm happy to be here. Thanks for doing this, and I'm excited to talk about what we're building.
Absolutely. As always, before we get really heavy into it, I want to give a brief preamble to let all the viewers know, as always, everything you are hearing is to be considered for your information and educational purposes only. It is not necessarily to be construed as financial advice reflecting the opinions of myself, the team at the Wolves of Alt Street, ProfessorHodl, or the entirety of the team at Novo.finance. And with that said, Andrew, welcome. Would you please introduce yourself and tell us anything that you would like us to know about you and how you got into the industry?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And for that matter, guys, maybe just assume that anything I ever say on any platform is not financial advice would be really great. But yeah, let me give you a little bit of background about myself. Although it may not be interesting, I'm sure it's pretty important. And so I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, so in the United States. I am 31 years old. I graduated from the College of Charleston in Charleston, South Carolina, with an economics major. And in my senior year there, I actually started building my first software company. So I basically started and ran a software company for about 5 years after college. That company was called Secure, Sequr. And, we did the whole fundraising thing. We had some pretty prominent investors here in Atlanta, Georgia. Built a cool little business. We scaled it. And let's see, I think it was about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years now, that we ended up selling Secure to another company called Genia. And so that was, it was a $10 million acquisition. It was a really great deal for everyone. And so about 2.5 years ago, I actually decided to change pace a little bit and got into, believe it or not, the boutique hotel business. So I actually started a company buying boutique hotels. We renovate them. We wrap them under one management team, and then we operate them. And so we've been doing that, and that's been very successful. But having had an early exit and having that business, I've had a lot of, I guess what you can say is free time in the past couple of years. And so first and foremost, I got into crypto as an investor, which is probably like, I don't know, it's got to be why 95% of us are even here.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've been in the space not incredibly long. I've always kind of followed Bitcoin, but seriously started actively investing more in DeFi and stuff like that really the past 2 years. And then, of course, now getting even more involved in DeFi this past really 6 months is kind of how long we've been working to get sort of Novo to the point it's at. And then, that's how I got here. It's also one other little tidbit. I always say this because people are going to look me up, and it's kind of interesting, and I like to get ahead of it a little bit. But if you Google my name, you're probably going to see a really interesting shark attack story from like a year and a half ago.
I did see that story, actually.
Yeah. So that's legit. Yeah, I was attacked by a 10-foot bull shark in Florida about a year and a half ago, and just latched onto my shoulder. And so it was a pretty crazy experience. But I'm okay now, and I've most of my mobility, super lucky. And I don't know, I like to tell people it as well, because it kind of it almost kind of like shook me into my current mindset, and really, I think why I'm so driven to do the things I'm driven now is because I was pretty close, man. I was on the verge, and so I've changed a lot of things in my life, and I'm just really excited about sort of the direction it's going, and Novo is sort of my new outlet for, I would say my passions, and hopefully an outlet for creativity as well. So I'm super excited to get into the actual project. And enough about me, I guess, at this point.
No problem. So you've given us your real name. Are any of your developers doxed as part of your team?
Yeah, you can go to the website. Everyone's on there. We're kind of shuffling developers around right now, so I'm trying and actively hiring. And we have one dev that's not doxed publicly, but of course doxed to me. And then moving forward, because we're going for radical transparency, like we truly are, like I would like to almost set the stage for how companies do this in the future. It's going to be a requirement. And so that'll be like full KYC. That makes sense. But as far as like core founders, it's really just me. And so that can be seen as maybe a disadvantage, but it's also potentially an advantage, especially in DeFi, right? And me being in the United States, I'm on the hook for everything, and I'm not trying to hide. So I kind of joke around and tell people, like this is meant to be safe. I can't run off with your money. Does that make sense? I don't want to go to jail.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I joke around that it's a built-in safety mechanism.
Arguably it is. A lot of crypto investors definitely feel a little better if they have somebody they can tweet at and when the price dumps. Okay.
No, I certainly know that I'll be getting a lot of that.
All right. Novo Finance seems to have a ton of product offerings. It's a DAO, it's a wallet, it's got fiat on-ramp, it's got liquidity farming. What, in your opinion, makes Novo stand out from the many other projects offering a similar package?
Yeah, that's a good question. And just to clarify one thing, we are actually not a DAO.
Really? Because I saw that term used quite a few times in the literature.
I'm not sure where. I think there's a reference to potentially working towards a DAO. I actually think the jury's still out on the efficacy of DAO's ability to deploy capital. I think we're seeing that.
I can't disagree with you. I can't disagree.
With the current landscape. And so who's to say we won't become a DAO in the future? But to be honest, I think at this stage, community-driven feedback and potentially keeping the way things are, I don't know that we're better equipped to generate returns that way rather than going down that path. Again, that might change, and I think it's important to note for everyone listening here as well is that this is super early. Like I think we're 350 holders. We just launched this thing. Like we are still building out a lot of the functionality that we're going to talk about. But I did want to start getting this out there, and I want to start talking about it because I think that some of the stuff that we're building, I do think it can be better informed if we have a community invested in what we're doing. Like there's going to be, people out there that have really good insight that have invested in a ton of different DeFi protocols more than I have, and they may have some of the more valuable input that will go into some of the things that we do. Now, circling back to your initial statement about all the sort of the products and things that we're doing and sort of how we differentiate, I'm just going to go ahead and start by saying that I am a firm believer that rebase protocols, and there are a ton of them, will not work. I don't think that they're going to work in the long run. And I don't think it takes a game theorist or an economics degree to understand that you can't just generate rewards out of nothing. And so what a rebase project is, they're going to tell you that, okay, it doesn't matter that the price is going down. Don't think about the price. We're going to reward you with so many tokens that it's going to combat the downward price pressure associated with an increasing supply, right? That's kind of the pitch. And I won't argue that it definitely works from like a raising funds sort of way, but in the long term, it's just not sustainable. And it requires new investors constantly. And I don't think anyone is really arguing that that's not the case, but it's a constant robbing Peter to pay Paul. And so I have kind of come out and been like, anti-rebase. I even call our protocol anti-rebase. So like that's the first thing I want to get across. And really, secondly, we can talk about obviously our protocol, but I do think that projects like Olympus DAO, they have done a lot of really cool things. And I do think, by the way, like what they've done with the Treasury and backing Ohm with DAI and some of that stuff is really cool. And they've shown the power of smart contracts and what they can do in the DeFi space. But again, ultimately, rebasing isn't going to work. And so if I could imprint anything on anyone listening to this, my biggest thing is, if you're investing in DeFi, just ask yourself two questions. Where are my rewards coming from? And then more importantly, who's paying for them? And so that's probably a decent segue into Novo and sort of how it works, because unlike Rebase Protocol, we don't just spin up bonds and sell them, and we don't adjust the supply or mint new tokens. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's particularly noteworthy that I'm hearing this now, because I feel like I've watched a lot of these Ohm fork DAOs tank in price for individually unique reasons each time, but also together. Like all of these things seem to crash together. So it was. To be honest. Okay, and here's another. And I promise I'll get to Novo in a second, but here's something else that's interesting. If it's a fork, in my opinion, gosh, people are not going to like this. It's a money grab. Like if you're going to invest, well, some people aren't going to like that, but there's definitely some users here whose heads turned the moment you said, I'm against rebase protocols, and I don't think any of these million% APYs are sustainable. So there's definitely some people who agree with you here.
Yeah, well, I hope so, and again, I may be against rebase, but if you do support it, like, or maybe you support, like, don't go buy the weird fork that claims they have better utility, right? Like, go to the original project. If you're gonna invest in Ohm if that's your thing. Don't go buy Time Wonderland, okay? Because I am so shocked that these projects are raising so much money, and you look at their documentation and it's a carbon copy of the original. Like sometimes they forget to even change like Ohm or Olympus.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, exactly. And that's how you know it was just a copy job.
It's ridiculous. And so I promise you, this is like, I am getting to like, it is important to note that, because it was kind of one of the driving factors of why I started this, is because I was looking for something that didn't exist. And so I needed to will it into existence because I was trying to scratch my own itch. And so basically I started looking at what was out there, and this may create a little bit of FUD, but I want to get ahead of it. So if you think about, like, everyone here is probably familiar with reflection tokens, right? Like, dude, there's so many meme coins out there that do it, like think SafeMoon, right?
Well, hold on. So, just for my edification, because I'm not sure what you mean, can you explain what a reflection token is?
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. So essentially, it is it's tokens that they charge a tax on transactions, buying, selling, transferring. Typically, it's going to be like a really large tax, like 10% or higher. And so,
I've seen a lot of charity burns with 3 to 10%. And shit like that.
Yeah, well, that's an angle too. I can almost promise you that if it's a charity play, I don't know. Those seem to be money grabs to me as well. But basically, what they'll do with that tax or those, I don't know, man. I'm gonna be blunt about a lot of stuff, because I've gotten frustrated.
We like blunt. Blunt's great.
I hope so. But yeah, so back to the reflection thing. So essentially what happens is they take those transactions and they sort of divvy it up. Part of it gets redistributed to the holders automatically. So you're kind of getting more of that token. And then some of them will use it to potentially regenerate liquidity. Now, the two things I want to point out there is we are nothing like these meme coins or reflection tokens in general, but they're definitely onto something with the tax. And here's why. When they take that tax, and if they're using it for rewards, at least that's real, tangible money. Like, they are not minting new tokens. They're not creating value out of nowhere. That's real. And so that was the first thing that sort of inspired me. The second was obviously, a protocol that has an ability to regenerate its own liquidity. That's a really powerful thing. And that's something that we do as well. And so I saw some of these mechanisms and I thought there's definitely a better way to do this. And so that's sort of how Novo started. And if it makes sense, I'll get into the actual mechanics of that. And then what I think will help after doing that is it'll be a good segue into some of the products that we're building and some of the more technical stuff like our staking mechanism and the treasury. So if none of this is making sense, I can back up, but happy to keep going, of course.
You're good.
Cool. So let's get to Novo. Novo is what I refer to as a volume-based protocol. I've also been known to call it an anti-rebase protocol, but we can stick to volume-based for now. And essentially, Novo, like those reflection tokens that I'm talking about, has a tax as well. So on buys and sells, there's a 5% fee. Transfers are a little different. That's a 2% fee, and I can touch on that a little bit later. But obviously, the reason there is that, and the reason these taxes are lower is we do want to promote movability and transferability. So we want people to move the tokens around, and I'll get to that as well. And that's because of volume. But essentially, if you buy or sell Novo, you're getting hit with that 5% tax, right? And so I'll break that tax down for you really quickly so you can understand it. Some of this is stuff that you've probably seen before, and then some of it's brand new and unique to us. So just for starters, 0.5% of the transaction is just burned, right? So that, in a sense, just makes this a deflationary protocol. Nothing new there, but it is important, right? Because a decreasing supply is always going to have an inverse effect on price. Again, the antithesis of rebasing. Secondly, 0.5% is going to the treasury. So at this point, as early as we are, this is really the only way the treasury is earning income. And so that's a small 0.5% on transactions. So I'll get to the treasury and how that works a little bit later as well. But I'll touch on the other two functions that are happening. So 2%, and again, this may sound complicated, but we're at 0.5%, 0.5%. So that's 1% total of the 5. And now 2% goes to regenerating liquidity. So obviously nothing new here. Again, we basically take half Novo, half BNB, and we put it back in the liquidity pool. It's very healthy for a protocol to have strong liquidity. And then the last piece, the 2%, that goes to what's referred to as our temporal staking pool. And so I'll touch on temporal staking and what it is in just a second, but that's kind of how the fee works. Does that all make sense?
It seems to, at least to me. If anything's unclear, everyone, please let me know.
It's all.
Yeah, my question specifically about Novo's rewards revolves around what you call the Smart Treasury. I'm wondering what makes the Treasury particularly smart.
I thought you might be getting into that. And I'll get to that in just a second. Let me just round out this last thought about totally get into that. And it's honestly it's important, one of the more important aspects to this. But that last percent of the fee goes to temporal staking. So like I'm sure everyone here is familiar with staking. And the way staking typically works is that you receive rewards basically on a pro rata basis to your contribution to the staking pool. right? So let's say you stake, your staked balance represents 10% of the pool. You're going to get 10% of the rewards. Okay. So basically, we are creating a new reward system called temporal staking, which essentially is going to not only combine the size of your balance to the staking pool, but it also factors in the length of time that you've staked. So essentially, we have a weighted staking reward system that's fairly unique. Unique as in we built it ourselves. And essentially what it does is it combats the ability for whales or larger holders to basically come in and just absorb all the staking rewards. So if you're a smaller investor, you may not be getting as many of the rewards, but if you're able to stake longer, you can actually start sort of leveling the playing field. So the reason I want to touch on that before I got to the smart treasury is essentially to say that just like in its most, like, I guess, broken down state, the volume-based protocol rewards users or stakers with real, like, tangible money. Now, the smart treasury is what we're doing to basically double dip the reward. So I can get into that now.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess everyone here, if you are invested in, let's say, one of those rebase projects that I've been talking about, you're probably familiar with treasuries and how they work. They do all sorts of different things. Some of them are buying back and burning. Some of them have the backing or pegging mechanisms. And so what's really interesting about what we're doing and what's our ultimate goal is basically when we lock your tokens from staking into our smart contract, we don't have a need for liquidity, right? Because we're generating our own liquidity. And so by not having that need, we don't just want to lock your tokens up and basically say, hey, these aren't being used. Like, we just want to lock them up because, it makes us more stable. So what we're doing is we're actually reinvesting those into yield optimizers. Example being for BSC would be Beefy Finance. And so that's why we say it is one token diversified, because not only are you receiving direct rewards from the protocol from staking, but you're also diversified and invested as if you had just locked the tokens into a yield optimizer or a vault. So you're basically double dipping. You're getting both of those things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're getting one set just for holding and another set for the staking, basically.
Yeah, well, so basically by staking, you're receiving rewards, right? So you're receiving rewards directly from volume transacted across Nova. But what I'm saying is once you're locked in, you're also getting rewards directly by the protocol reinvesting those funds. So essentially, like, imagine having to choose. Imagine being like, okay, I have money that I want to deploy. Do I want to do the smart thing, and do I want to just put it into, a stable coin yield optimizer and get, maybe it's 7 to 10% returns? Or do I want to go invest in a more speculative DeFi protocol like Novo and potentially get higher returns? And what I'm saying is not only are you staked, but you're getting both. And so it's a pretty interesting way to start creating compounded rewards. And by the way, none of this is happening from minting new tokens. This is all like a natural progression of things. So we say the smart treasury is smart, like that's just kind of like marketing lingo. It's just a treasury that's doing what we call proxy growth, which is essentially growing and investing for you. Because one of our aims is not necessarily to attract like the DeFi guys that are sort of doing this stuff every day on their own. Like, we want to make DeFi accessible to people that aren't going to do some of this stuff. Like, I personally, like, I know I'm into this stuff, but like, I know a ton of people that aren't just going to like be moving their funds around constantly, or they don't have time, or they don't know how to invest. And so if there's one protocol that they can invest in and diversify automatically, I think that this has huge potential for bringing in, new investors, not only to DeFi, but crypto in general. And so obviously a rising tide lifts all ships. So I get really excited talking about this stuff, and I hope I'm doing an okay job trying to break down the technical side of it, because I know a lot of this stuff is pretty technical, and maybe it'd be better to field some questions and see if I've maybe skipped over some stuff. But yeah, that's kind of like a very high level macro perspective on things.
I relate a lot to this approach because I don't have time to do all the kind of trading myself. I prefer compounding interest wherever I can get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big fan of the Nexo savings and loan protocol because it supplies me both an on-ramp, a tax-free off-ramp because of the borrowing, and I can compound my assets. That compounding matters a great deal to me because it essentially represents a dollar cost average based on assets I've already got because it compounds every day. So
exactly.
So this appeals to me personally. I guess my next question though, your webpage says you have an audit pending. Is there anything you can disclose to us about the audit?
Yeah, I mean, we're currently doing a comprehensive audit with SoKid, and then hopefully in the very near future we can do kind of a more formal audit. We're looking at CerTic right now, but I mean, other than that, yeah, I can talk a little bit about perhaps maybe some of the security concerns or typical stuff that maybe you want to hear about. It's funny, I was actually listening to one of your AMAs recently, and it seemed like the whole beginning of the AMA was talking about like a project getting hacked, and so not that we had to learn from that, but our treasury is a Gnosis safe, so it's a 7 signature required safe with a hardware wallet. We do mostly best practices stuff, and then hopefully we'll have that audit back soon and can sort of release that to people. But it is important to note that in the meantime that, I kind of have a pretty good pulse on things, and any contracts and ownership of that stuff, that's all me. And again, like I said earlier, maybe it doesn't answer all the questions, but at least having a doxed founder, again, that's subject to the regulatory requirements of the United States, should give people a little bit of comfort.
Okay. So you're the primary liquidity controller then. You're the holder of the private keys for the wallets that contain that.
Yeah, so this might be interesting to note as well, and maybe it's a question that would come up, but we didn't do a pre-sale, we didn't do a launch pad. Basically, I seeded all the liquidity myself. So I deposited, and I don't remember the total, but I deposited a large quantity of BNB into the liquidity pool, and then I locked that liquidity with Unicrypt. So it's funny. I have invested a large amount of money into this protocol, and the reason I didn't want to do the fair launch, well, there's a couple of reasons I didn't, I didn't do a launch pad or a pre-sale or a whitelist. Is that in my opinion, they've become very like pump and dumpy, I guess. You essentially have a bunch of people that just want to get whitelisted so that they can, sell for a quick 2 to 3x, and maybe they get blacklisted from the next 2 or 3 IDOs, but they're okay with that. And so I've seen that so many times that, in my opinion, if I could seed all the liquidity myself, really put my money where my mouth is, and open up trading just in a fair way, I thought that would be a more organic way to grow things. So I don't think you'll ever see anything hype-wise coming from us. I'm actually terrified of unsustainable growth. I want this thing to grow through word of mouth and through people that understand it and get DeFi, not someone looking for, the next moonshot, or they saw it on a post on Reddit for going to the moon, right? So I don't know, maybe that's some interesting insight, but yeah, I have, hundreds of thousands of dollars that I've invested into this. So like, I truly do have my skin in the game. And again, like that liquidity that I seeded and locked, probably not getting that back, right? Like that's going to be used for trading so long as this thing's in existence. So this truly is derived out of passion for me. And so obviously, like I want it to succeed and I want it to make everyone money. But and again, sorry, I know that's a long-winded way around your very simple questions, but
you're good,
yeah,
brother.
I hope that provides a little more clarity.
That's okay. Do you have any security concerns regarding your liquidity engines or the staking protocol? I'm asking this because we see a lot of projects similar get rugged even by their doxed team members.
Yeah, so yes, I mean, at this point, I mean, we don't have any security concerns around the liquidity necessarily. I mean, I trust who we've locked it with, and I think obviously they're the standard, right? Like Unicrypt basically invented liquidity lockers. And as far as the staking contract, we're being very, very delicate with that. And honestly, it's probably causing a little impatience already within our community. But we want to make sure that that's fully audited as well before we release that. And so that's also been one of the reasons it's hung up.
Okay.
Makes sense. Yeah.
All right. Novo is built on Binance Smart Chain. Why did you choose Binance in particular?
Yes, I'm so happy someone asked this. And mainly because I don't love Binance Smart Chain, which I know sounds incredibly ironic.
As somebody who uses it but doesn't love it myself, I agree.
Yeah, well, and here's why. And this is probably why we both use it, is because it's still fast and really cheap, right? And so when we looked at what chain we wanted to launch on initially, Binance Smart Chain's pretty well supported. Like there's definitely like a pretty strong following for new projects. And so obviously Ethereum would have been the first choice. But given the fact that we need to be able to, I mean, you're going to need to be able to buy and stake and approve multiple transactions. Like this is a volume-based protocol. And so because of that, Ethereum just wouldn't work, right? Like people would get destroyed by the gas fees. Like it wouldn't be a good investment ever. And so we knew that by launching on Binance Smart Chain, it would be a very, very temporary, I guess, home for Novo, because if you go to our documentation and you read the last pillar of utility, our goal, and hopefully fairly quickly, is to be chain agnostic. And basically what I mean by that is we're going to start expanding to other chains, and we're going to do it in I guess a fairly unique way that maintains one single supply. And so it's actually going to be really cool. But if you take a look at the Treasury contract, or if you go look it up on our website, you'll notice that the Treasury currently holds nearly 53% of, I think it's around 53% of the supply of Novo. And it's important to note for people listening that that's not to be sold. That's not for rewards. That is purely being held in a safe and will be used to seed liquidity and supply on different chains. So essentially, the answer to your question is why Binance Smart Chain? And it was because it was just easy. I had devs that supported it. And in all honesty, we're going to do all the chains. So it's just a sort of temporary, if that makes sense.
Well,
and when I say all the
somewhere.
chains, obviously not. Yeah, well, yeah. And again, I knew I would get a little bit of pushback because Binance Smart Chain is the home to like all the shit coins in the world.
Correct.
Especially like the projects that we are striving not to be like. So I don't know, maybe we can like bring a refreshing new take to the BSC, right? But in all honesty, yeah, I hear whoever asked that question, because like if I could go back in time, would I have done a different one? Would I have gone AVAX or something? Probably. But at this point, it's temporary, and we're focused on building some pretty cool stuff that'll get us there, and hopefully the near future.
Okay. What kind of APR or APY rates can we expect on Novo's staking and reflections?
Yeah. So just to double down on the reflections thing, you will not receive reflections with this token. Only staking rewards. So once the staking contract is live, it is purely staking. But this is also like a question that can't be answered, and I'm kind of happy it was asked.
Okay.
Because when you are a rebase token, you can say or make the API whatever the hell you want, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, oh, our APY is 1,000,000%. Like, obviously, it doesn't take a rocket scientist or like it doesn't take a genius to figure out that like that's not sustainable. So I can't tell you what the APY is going to be because it's purely based on volume. So if volume's high, the APY is going to be higher. If volume's particularly low for a day, it'll be a little bit lower.
So it's flexible. It's gonna roll up and down.
Yeah, I mean, it totally depends. And so essentially, if you think about the fact that we're a volume-based protocol, our job, my job, the entire team's job is essentially to create volume in any way possible. We want to generate volume. One of the biggest reasons we want to be chain agnostic is because it creates massive arbitrage opportunities for trading. And so that's also a really good segue into one of our products, Novo Pay. But yeah, I mean, volume will dictate your rewards. So obviously, as I mentioned earlier, if you are staked with us and once it's set up, you will also be getting stable returns from, again, like assume like a beefy finance vault or something, right? So like you will almost have like a baseline APY, call it 10 to 15%, that you literally can't go below. So it's all upside at that point, right? So it'll fluctuate is the answer. We can't tell you because we don't just magically set it like rebase tokens.
And my experiences with rebase tokens, I would describe like playing chicken with a crypto whale. I don't see you winning. Like even if you know the exact moment to get out before they run a train over you, I simply don't believe that it's that easy to accomplish.
You know what? It's funny because people, the whole game theory aspect, right? Like,
well, it's a prisoner's dilemma, right?
I know, yeah, exactly. But it doesn't take a game theorist to understand that if everyone sells, yeah, that's bad. And if everyone's staking, yeah, no shit, it's going to be good. Like that's been the natural mechanism of everything always, right? So like it's just marketing lingo in essence. So again, maybe I don't want to well, actually I kind of do, right? I'm not going to take it easy on these projects because again, this whole project Novo was built out of frustration around them. But yeah, I mean, I don't even remember what the original question was. Was it the API question or APY question?
Okay, no worries. That brings me nicely to my personal final question from my docket, and usually my toughest question. All right, Novo's mission statement says, quote, to facilitate the mass adoption of decentralized finance by offering a cryptocurrency that inherently maintains long-term protocol health, stability, and liquidity through automated smart contracts to counteract illogical human behavior and short-sighted decision-making, end quote. Smart contracts are cool, but so far they haven't seemed to accomplish that goal by themselves. In fact, I've seen them manipulated and used to steal lots of money from tiny goldfish traders. How exactly will Novo's automated smart contracts help to, quote, counteract illogical human behavior? I ask this because I doubt any technology can solve that problem.
Yeah, that's kind of why I typically do hedge a little bit by saying when people ask about the smart treasury, like, yeah, in an ideal world, you're fully automated with smart contracts that truly do work. But I do always think that there's going to be a manual aspect to it. And if I may, if I may even just eliminate some of the technicalities there, I think the more important part of the mission here is that I really do see an opportunity to make DeFi more accessible. And if you were to just pull that out, I think it's important. And I know we didn't even have time to talk about any of the the actual products that we're building.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Like
no,
Novopay.
we've got a lot of community questions. I can't.
This is just you.
That was just me. No, sir. No, sir. Not at all. No, that's my docket. I will write a special docket that I tell to no one. And then I will open the floodgates to the community, because there are users in this community that are far more technically skilled and savvy than I am.
Yeah, sure.
And I cannot possibly encompass everything myself. That's just my doozy question. I always have to have a doozy.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, that's a great question. And I think it requires a good amount of thought and insight. But like, listen, temporal staking and what we're doing there is new. And so I think, right, like the human aspect, people and humans are constantly shooting themselves in the foot. And so by potentially really, and I mean really and truly, rewarding people for their commitment and rewarding people for actually holding, because there's a time component to it. And then again, by not just arbitrarily minting new tokens out of thin air, we're basically saying that this is going to be a healthier protocol in the long run, because we're never ever going to be in a position where the supply goes up. Okay, that's just never going to happen. The supply goes down. And so if you think about, I said hedging earlier, the worst case scenario, and again, right, like if everyone's selling, the price is going to go down. But really, in a world that's not so ideal, there's just low volume on the protocol. And at that point, that's where we're talking about automated smart contracts, because we want to set it up in a way where, let's assume volume's low, staking rewards are low, but you're still receiving yields from your proxy growth. That's where you can actually do cool stuff. Buy back Novo, burn it, right? You can send rewards directly to the treasury. I don't know if I touched on this earlier, but you also have to remember, we own our own liquidity. And because we own our own liquidity, we are constantly earning small fees on top of that. So that's another source of income that can be sent directly to the staking pool for rewards when volume is low, if necessary, right? So like there's things that you can do to automate the rewards, or rather I'd say further the rewards in times of low volume. So a lot of this stuff, I promise you, it's going to change, because we want to be malleable, and I'm sure we'll hear some really good questions here in a moment, but like people are going to have better ideas even than we do right now. And like we have a pretty good idea of how things are going to shake out, but who's to say, the smart treasury won't function, with some really cool new stuff based on community feedback? I don't know. But I do really love that question. It was very hard to answer, which means it's a really good question, but I hope I kind of covered it there.
Okay, no problem. With that, we will basically dive right square into the community questions, because this gang always has bangers. We will begin with dope. Could you develop more on the mechanics that Novo is implementing, such as ARL, POL, PRM, and what are the rest of the mechanics, if there are more that you can tell us about?
Yeah, so I think you said ARL. Regenerative liquidity, POL, Protocol Owned Liquidity. What was the third thing?
The third one is PRM.
PRM, yeah, for sure. Yeah, so obviously, like POL, y'all probably seen that. That's like one of the things that I applaud with a rebase project like Olympus, is that they own their own liquidity, right? And so myself, by seeding the liquidity, right, as the protocol, we already own all of our liquidity. And then we're actually the regenerative part of that. So the first part of the question, they obviously aren't doing this, but because we have the transaction tax, right, we're constantly regenerating our own liquidity. So if you can imagine in the future, when we're in a really good spot with liquidity on a particular chain, or maybe we're in a really good spot with liquidity across all chains, we can probably go ahead and reroute that 2% liquidity fee to stakers. So in the future, 4% of the 5% tax is all going to be going to rewards. And then I think the last one, what was it, PRM?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. And so I kind of just touched on this a couple moments ago, but PRM or PRMs are simply price recovery mechanisms. And so a very common example of this would be during times of larger sell pressure, the Treasury, in the presence of excess funds, will automatically or manually, which is important to note, buy back Novo and either do one of two things with it: reward stakers for additional rewards or burn supply. Okay. So those three things working in tandem with each other is essentially like the bread and butter of our protocol. It's why we think it's going to have really, really good success in the long term. It's why we like our main focus is on the health of the protocol, because there's a direct correlation between protocol health and overall market capitalization, which, let's be honest, that's what everyone here cares about.
All right. Sorry, I'm bouncing all over the place here.
No,
okay.
I don't know how you do it.
I don't know how I'm doing it either. Zach, hello, and welcome to the Wolves of Wall Street, Professor Hodl. Firstly, I want to thank you and our lovely host, Nexus, for making this AMA possible, and everyone for tuning in. I've got one question in mind for today regarding Novo. Here goes. You guys state you have an anti-whale mechanism, which prevents whales from buying too much percentage of the circulating supply. You prevent these whales from buying too much by setting a 0.5% purchasing cap. What stops whale users from owning a multitude of addresses just to purchase like 20% of the supply? Yet again, thank you for taking your time to answer our questions.
Great question. And listen, to be honest, there's nothing you can do, right? So like implementing so on initial launch, we kind of had two mechanisms. One was an anti-bot, right? So we blacklisted as many possible bot addresses as we could. And so obviously that kind of helps. But I essentially added as much liquidity as I possibly could to try to make the price high enough so that it's not necessarily feasible, or if it were, right, like if a bot was to buy 20% of the supply, like it would have had to have been a very hefty investment. So I don't think it's likely that an early investor or bot or whatever you want to call it was able to buy. I mean, listen, you're not going to stop people from buying with multiple wallets, right? Like there's just no way you can do it. But I do think that because we were in stealth mode, because this was really marketed to people, like think about this. In my direct network, I told everyone I possibly could about Novo. And this is before we're really marketing it online, right? And the reason I did that is because these people investing, I'm walking them through how to buy Novo on PancakeSwap. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I had to like send BNB so they could buy it and have them Venmo me because they had a Coinbase account, or maybe they didn't even have a crypto account at all. So yeah, I guess what I'm saying here is that like these people don't know that they can have more than one wallet. So it's very unlikely. But yeah, I mean, at this point, there's absolutely nothing we or anyone for that matter can do to combat that. Having that little sort of mechanism in there, it helps. But like if someone was going to pour, let's just say they wanted to invest $50,000 into our project right as it launched just to get up 20% of the supply across, let's call it what? I mean, what did I say? 40 wallets? That's so unlikely. Like, I don't think that anyone would take that risk, right? Especially because no one knew what Novo was when we launched it. That's why we stayed in stealth mode for that matter. So I would venture to say that yes, I'm sure people have multiple wallets, right? Like if you wanted to invest a lot of money in Novo right now and you bought 5 million tokens, like you can go buy another 5 million tokens with another wallet. This is DeFi. This is anonymous. We're not going to know. So I wish there's something that could be done. It's just not possible.
Okay. Zio asks, how are you guys going to expand the Novo ecosystem?
Yeah, good. Yeah, great question. It's probably a good segue into something I had wanted to talk about a little bit. So if you go to our website and you take a look, or if you hover over the menu and go to products, you're going to see something called Novopay. So Novopay is something we're working on now. It's actually almost finished. So when we launch our staking contract, we'll also be launching just the dApp itself, and Novopay will be like very shortly after that. And so Novopay is, I mean, for lack of a better word, I do call it an ecosystem product. And so essentially what it is, and some people might find this very obvious, and it is pretty obvious, but what it is actually pretty cool. And so basically, Novopay is a direct fiat onboarding to our token. So if I could break that down a little bit for you, think about it this way. We integrate with Ramp Network. Now, this can change. We could use Wire, we can use MoonPay, we can use Simplex. So we're actually not having to deal with regulatory requirements and all the really the headache and bullshit that they have to go through. But here's what we're doing directly in our dApp. You can put in exactly how much Novo you want to buy, use one of these fiat on ramps. And what we do is we automatically intercept the transaction. We take your wallet address. We automatically swap the the BNB that's being purchased. And again, no one's seeing this. Like the end customer doesn't know. And we're swapping it for Novo in real time. So this is all happening automatically. So someone that's new to DeFi, that's just not going to figure out the process, you can go straight to our website and actually get onboarded with Novo. And again, this is cool because I can't tell you how many times I've told people like, hey, you should invest in this project. It's really cool. And they're like, cool, what do I do? And I'm like, okay, do you have a Coinbase account? Okay, you have Ethereum? Sure. Transfer it out, pick MetaMask or Trust Wallet. Oh, okay, now you've got to convert that to the right chain, connect it to the dApp, Pancake Swap, set the slippage. Like by the time I'm done explaining it, they are so far past investing. They're like, no thanks. And so not only is this a good opportunity for us, but Novopay's goal is to be implemented into other early stage crypto projects. So if you can imagine a simple copy and paste widget into your dApp, and you can offer your token right directly from fiat for the people that don't necessarily understand the process. And it's going to maintain decentralization. It's going to support all the tokenomics that we have. And it's really, really basic in its essence. But what's very, very cool about it is that because we're a volume-based protocol, this is going to be one of our biggest drivers of volume, because every single transaction that's happening, just behind the scenes, there's a little bit of Novo being burned, and there's a little bit of Novo being generated and rewarded to stakers. Make sense?
Yes, it makes sense to me. I hope that answers the user's question.
Going back to the question he asked, I guess about the ecosystem, I would say that like go read about the pillars of utility in our documentation, and it sort of highlights the natural progression of those things, including Novopay. I would say that like on a priority list, like Novopay is right up there at the top as far as generating volume, and that's followed shortly after by what I talked a little bit earlier, chain agnosticism, because that also is going to increase volume. That's going to help us increase volume, create arbitrage, and hopefully that's really when you see the magic of the protocol is going to be high volume. Okay. So I hope that helps.
Okay. Moving right along, we have some questions from Only Lone Wolf, who sort of follows up on why you chose BSC. I believe we went into that. The reasoning was basically people could work on it and you had to start somewhere, but they're planning on expanding to other chains. Are there any main utilities you want to tell us about besides the lending and the staking?
Yeah, no, I mean, at this point, I think the focus is obviously on the temporal staking, and then as far as utility, right? Novopay is absolutely the big one, and then the last one, and I kind of hate to say this, I don't even like to talk about it, but we're planning on doing a DeFi wallet. And the only reason, and I feel like every new project is like, we're doing our own wallet, right?
Well,
Like,
I hear every
a,
project say
go
they're
ahead.
doing their own liquidity swap and their own exchange and
Yeah.
they're all of that. I'll
Yeah,
hear that
exactly.
before I hear a wallet most of the time.
Sorry. Yeah, and you're right. And a lot of them are building it because it's a home for their swap, right? Insert the project name and add swap, and
Yes.
that's everyone, right? But what's kind of cool, and the reason that we're looking at doing our own wallet is because going back to our mission, our goal is to convert not just DeFi or crypto investors, but we want to get people that have never owned crypto and have them, rather than going straight to a centralized exchange. Like, we think that by using Novo Pay, rather than them even having to set up a trust wallet or set up a MetaMask, we can actually create a wallet for them and get them access, maintain decentralization, and hand over. So basically, in order for us to get new people on board as smoothly as possible with Novo Pay in the future without having a wallet, we have to create our own wallet and onboard them all at once. So if that makes sense, like, you could think of it as like, oh, this is a good wallet to hold your tokens. If you want, transfer out to whatever wallet you want to support, but it allows us to really streamline the onboarding process for NovoPay, especially for those that are like, oh, I'm out. Like, they just said I had to download some browser extension and then connect it to this website. I'm not doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, next question. Oh, sorry, I'm scanning because we've covered quite a few of these. Filico Mafia. According to you, how can DeFi, decentralized finance, beat centralized finance? And how will, or I guess can it, be the future?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know that DeFi is ever gonna pass centralized finance, right? Like, or I guess did he say CeFi or traditional finance?
Yeah,
But
basically, yeah.
yeah, I mean, listen, it's not a competition, right? Like, if you think about what DeFi is, it's everything that you can do in traditional finance. I don't care if it's trying to generate yields, loaning your money for interest, trading derivatives. Like, the whole goal of DeFi is to basically do those things, but instead of having to work with like a central authority or like give them all your information and more, right? Like, this is a way to make it faster, cheaper, peer to peer, truly free. So, like, in an ideal world, yeah, everyone is using DeFi, but I don't think that we're going to get there anytime soon. So if the question is like, when will DeFi like replace traditional finance, the answer is never. But a rising tide lifts all ships, and so the more people that we do get to start adopting some of these things, right? Like, it's going to lift the entire space. And so I don't know. That's everything that we do is sort of aimed at trying to get people to understand that this complicated and at times scary world is really interesting, and there's a lot of opportunity. So if anything, all you can really do at this point, because I mean, security, like, it's highly risky to invest in crypto and DeFi, right? Like, versus traditional finance, but you're not going to find the returns that you can in crypto, and so obviously, though, the risk and the volatility and all that stuff, I mean, it's baked into the price. In particular, a new project. So again, I know I've done this 1,000 times and had like a long-winded roundabout way of answering the question, but like, DeFi is not going to replace traditional finance. It's going to enhance it. It's going to supplement it. I'm not going to stop using my bank account for a very long time, right? Even if I am full like a DeFi guy.
I wish I could, but yeah, I'm with you.
I know, man. I do too. But like, just like, if you think about it, we're too far behind. Like, I mean, everything that it sucks, because like everything that I do, I constantly am pulling out my phone to, credit cards to pay for stuff. And like, if I could be truly honest, like every single person here that's invested in DeFi or is invested in crypto, like you're lying to yourself if your goal is not to make enough crypto to convert it to fiat, right? Like you're not getting that house you want, or you're not getting that car you want until you get it back to fiat. So until it's so mainstream that you don't need to convert it, like yeah, it's always going to be important. The TradFi.
Gotcha. Smoker Thou is noting that your various technological protocols are quite revolutionary sounding, and they're wondering if you've thought about leasing your tech to others to create additional ways of income.
Yeah, so obviously, Novopay is that, right? Not necessarily. I guess you could call it leasing, right? So it's actually just a free service that you can implement into your project. And so yeah, I mean, listen, I don't even think we're going to be able to control who uses our stuff, right? I fully expect to get forked into oblivion because like anything that's new, and if we have any moderate success, well, you'll see it. You'll see people using our stuff anyways. But more seriously, yeah, I mean, I think if there's stuff that we do in particular on the treasury side of things, yeah, I think that we can as a service it if you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, totally. There's opportunity really with everything. I mean, it's going to be hard to monetize and spin out temporal staking for other projects. I think they're just going to do it.
Well, we are.
Just know we were the first.
At this point, we are at the hour mark, but we still have a lot of questions. If you have to go or are pressed for time, I don't want to keep you.
No, hey, listen, I'm happy to keep rolling if you are. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, why not?
I will always try to get through as many of the questions as the folks I'm talking to will hang out and let me ask.
All right. Heck yeah, man. This is fun for me, and I don't do this stuff a lot, and I haven't really had an opportunity to talk about the project in a forum like this. It's really the first, so I'm just thankful for you guys for having me, and really all these amazing questions. So yeah, y'all keep firing them off, and I'll do my best.
You got it, boss. Still on Smoker Thou, with a constant flurry of news about hacks. Can you talk to us any more about security measures that you have implemented to ward off dedicated hackers who would try to steal from the smart contracts?
Yeah. I mean, so going back to some of just like the obvious stuff, right? Using multi-sig wallets, protecting the contracts with multi-sig, all that stuff. I think that where we really want to focus on security, and maybe what this person's talking about is because our aspirations to be chain agnostic. When you start doing stuff like that, the typical mechanism for becoming chain agnostic is basically minting and burning supply, and that is where you see a huge security risk. And so basically what we're doing for chain agnosticism is implementing a series of let's just, for lack of a better word, bridge lockers. So if you can imagine, and again, I know that they didn't ask about this, but this is where I would be most concerned about security. And so I would just like to get ahead of it a little bit and tell you how it's kind of work. And so basically, let's assume the second chain that we choose is Ethereum, right? So what we will do is we will mint the same quantity of tokens that exist on BSC at that moment. So obviously it's not going to be 1 billion tokens, which was our total supply. It'll be a little bit less than that because it's going to be the amount of tokens currently based on where the burn is. Because again, remember, we're constantly going down. And so every chain that we support, we're essentially minting that amount of tokens. They go into a secure locker, right? And then we take supply from the treasury that I talked about earlier, and we send that over into a locker as well. And then we release the supply from the new chain locker. And I know this sounds kind of complicated, but it's actually really simple, and it's really cool because it allows for a lot more security when it comes to going cross chain. Like I mentioned earlier, burning and minting new tokens to accomplish this, I think it's always going to be a pretty big security risk. No one's really figured out how to do it. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think there was like a $300 million hack like in the past 48 hours or something. I'm not sure if you know anything about that. So going back to the actual question, yeah, I mean, we're doing everything we can and everything that I just assume is standard good practice. But I do think we'll have a lot of feedback from the first round of revisions from the audit, and then obviously whatever we hear from that, we will implement as quickly as possible. And then, of course, being transparent about all that is important as well. And then I'll reiterate, obviously, our liquidity is locked, right? And then the only other really source of vulnerability would be the Treasury, which holds such a large quantity of the token. And so, yeah, that's kind of the only areas of concern at this point. But thank you and great question.
Still on Smoker, thou, because this is a good one. The NFT solution you are building, is it being built as a standalone product, or will it give in any way back to the community that holds the token?
Yes. Okay. I love that. I love that question. And so just go ahead and assume that every single thing that we do and ever do, regardless of whether it stands on its own branding or whether it's kind of separate, it is always going to contribute to volume. So it'll either generate rewards for stakers or it'll contribute to burn. Typically, it'll do both. So yeah, it's actually pretty cool what we're working on. And there are actually a couple little things. I don't like to talk about them because it almost comes across as if we're putting our eggs in too many baskets. But Novo
feature creep is a real problem.
Oh yeah, for sure. I agree. Yeah, and like that's why I don't talk about it. And by the way, going to feature creep, like if you look at people's roadmaps, I'm just like constantly shocked and laughing. It's like, so every single project in every single industry are all building everything, right?
Oh yeah.
You can put whatever you want on a roadmap and people be like, this is the future. I don't even think they have the intention of building it. But going back to the NFT thing, yeah, it absolutely will. And just to touch on what that is, there's a couple little projects that we have in stealth mode. We actually call it Epic Labs, and I'm self-funding these with the goal of being sort of ancillary products, always driving volume to the protocol. But in essence, if you want to think about what the NFT solution does, and by the way, I'm not a huge like NFT guy. Like I think that the NFT space right now in particular is like just a mega bubble. But what I will say is that if we can start figuring out how to make NFTs more, I guess, digestible to everyday people, it will help. And so what we're doing is we are trying to make a platform for businesses, in particular large brands, to mint NFTs in a smart and scalable way with their product development. So think Rolex can create an account and start pairing each one of their watches with an NFT that they own, they control, makes it easy for them, because these large companies, they're never going to be pros at that stuff. They're going to outsource it, right? And so they know that they need to get on board. And if we can make a self-service portal where, again, think Rolex can easily and in an automated way start pairing their physical products with these NFTs, that's kind of the holy grail. And so we're actually working on a pretty cool solution for that. And I don't want to get too much more into it because it's like, if I had to say something's on the back burner, that thing's behind it. But again, it's definitely important to what we're doing.
Okay. Raucous Porpoise, whose name I love, writes, will Novo at some point involve holders in more decisions in protocol governance, like a DAO? We kind of touched on that, but I didn't explicitly ask you that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I'm not going to lock us into a DAO, right? You can't go back, I don't think, right? You can't unDAO yourself. And so, yeah, I mean, I think every decision that we make will be mostly community, I guess, based on community feedback. Like I know let's see, like recently I was trying to decide, we want to put a cliff on our staking contract, right? Like how long do you have to stake before you are allowed to unstake, or if any? And so I actually don't know that I know the best answer for that. So the answer is sourced from community, right? Like, hey guys, how long should we do this? Whatever they say goes. So to an extent, we'll always be using community feedback, especially when it's a variable that we need to plug in, right? Because no one knows better than the collective whole. And so I think that we'll always approach that with a ton of care, and always make sure the community is involved, for sure.
Okay. Luca SP. Describe Novo Finance in 5 words.
Yes. Okay. Those don't count, right? Those words.
No, you're good. You're good. 5 words for Novo Finance.
Let's see. I would just say volume-based protocol. I know that's an unfair question, because there is just
there's a lot. No, it is. It is. You guys are developing a lot.
How about not rebase? Like
no rebase, volume-based protocol.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I mean, listen, that's a fun exercise, and it's probably important for me, if I do future speaking engagements, to maybe more succinctly explain what we do. But yeah, let's go with volume-based reward protocol. I don't love that either.
That's okay.
Let's work with it for now.
That's okay. You're close.
Well, we'll get there.
EC asks, where can we buy Novo? And what currencies can we use to buy it?
Yeah, so it's just obviously BSC, as I mentioned earlier, Pancake Swap. If you go to our website, NovoDeFi.xyz, and you click the main buy now button, it'll automatically open Pancake Swap, and it's going to import the contract for you. So Pancake Swap automatically imports the contract, and typical swap. Eventually, right, like, and hopefully in the near future, you can go to our dApp and buy with Novo Pay. But my guess would be that anyone that is in this Discord and listening to this, they're probably not going to want to pay the fees associated with what that'll be. So yeah, for now it's a Pancake Swap.
Gotcha. Luca SP is back. They ask, do you see the project around for the next 5 through 30 years?
Yeah, man, of course. I mean, that's the goal. That's why we're here. So another interesting aspect of, I guess, the marketing around Rebase is, I think their long-term goal is to go to $0 or like $1, right? Like they've always said that it's just going to keep going down. But yes, the whole purpose, the whole idea around Novo is that it's a healthier, sustainable protocol. And I guess by proxy, that means, yeah, we should be around. So that's the goal, at least, of everything we do. And to be honest, right, like the success of this protocol is purely going to be based on the amount of volume that we can drive. So like I said earlier, if we can drive volume, if there's anything we can do, if we can artificially create arbitrage, if we can go cross-chain and create different opportunities, like that's how we'll succeed. At what scale we succeed totally depends. But yes, heck man, we'll be around. If I have anything to do with it, I hope so.
Okay. All right, just give me just a moment. Perusing. Fairtaste asks, do you plan to promote your project in different countries or regions around the world? Is there a local community that to let know better and help understand your project?
Yeah, I don't I think I understand the question. Yeah, we want. I mean, we want to be everywhere, and we want to hopefully have holders in every country, right? I think one thing that we can do would be to make sure that we set up, channels within our communities that support obviously different languages, and then of course make sure that our website and our documentation is accessible in different languages. Because yeah, this is crypto and this is DeFi. Um, we don't see borders, and we hope that we have a nice, diverse ecosystem and diverse holders. So yeah, I mean, every country, come on in. If you are from another country and maybe you don't speak a lot of English, but you think that maybe you could help us expand, shoot me a DM, please. I'd love to discuss it.
Oh, cool. Wolf MVP quotes your Twitter as reading, quote, "The Novo Protocol is the first volume-based project that rewards users in so many ways that we can't list them all here," end quote. Don't you think that the reward process could possibly be described via tweets to help users better understand? I imagine what this gentleman is asking for is a Twitter thread of some sort.
Yeah, I think he is. And I think he's probably right because, and I don't know if I really stressed this earlier, but like this thing is so new and we're sort of in the process of figuring out like, I'm so wrapped up in the protocol and testing the staking contract, making sure we're like doing everything right from an economics perspective, and I manage the Twitter. I'm not that good at it, so like I understand. Yeah, we may be early, but it's not too soon to start putting some real professionals on it. And so to that, we definitely want to hire a good marketing firm that can help us spread awareness. I do want to caution though that like I do not want to necessarily create hype. I think that we can do this in a way that's super organic and more educational. But yeah, definitely right. If I can't list all the ways we reward people in the summary, I ought to list them in a Twitter thread. But yeah, Twitter has become such a great resource also for information about projects and like just announcements in general. So I think we'll spin up and start doing a really good job with that stuff and getting people involved and sort of aware of what we're doing.
Okay. EC asks, is it possible to mine the coin?
No. No mining, only staking.
Okay.
So, and to that, by the way, yeah, the supply, the max supply is already in existence, if you will, and really almost in circulation. So not only can you not mine it, but it will, it's the opposite. It's going to
burn,
disappearing. Yeah, it's going away. So obviously, I don't need to explain to this group the fact that mining in general is kind of going away.
It makes me sad. Don't get me started.
It is kind of sad, right? Like it's almost like our crypto childhood.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, Wolf MVP asks, multiple tokens to reward users without knowing about the stability, or I guess the token's stability in the market would be a bigger problem to deal with. Do you think you can cut down on tokens and focus on a fewer number of tokens instead?
I don't know if I followed. So can you read that one more time?
I believe what the user is trying to ask is, because the project may involve multiple tokens, that you're dealing with multiple volatile assets in the market as opposed to, say, just a governance token. And I think the user is wondering about the reasoning Novo took to go that route.
Yeah. I actually think they might be mistaken. So Novo currently there's just Novo, right? So you have Novo, and then if you can imagine reinvesting, we're not taking Novo and reinvest, like we're not locking Novo elsewhere for proxy growth. We're using instead stable coins. So you would have Novo and stable coins. What those stable coins are going to be, we don't know yet, because we're actually learning every day. We're learning a lot more about these so-called stable coins, right? Like, is USDT really backed by dollars, or has it proven that like mem and DAI are more reliable? And we're actually getting a lot of insight into that. So no, I don't think that there's going to be like, you're not going to see Novo token and then Novo stake token and then Novo governance token and then your bond token and then this, but like, it's not going to be super convoluted. It'll be actually very transparent, or not transparent, but I guess a lot simpler compared to like, if you were to go invest in Olympus, it's almost dizzying, the options of like GOM versus SOM versus like like the bonding and stuff. And by the way, to that, we will never ever do bonding, because it's just another way of essentially creating something of no value and then selling it. So never.
Okay. Luca is back. They ask, why did you decide to start this? Was it money or passion, or did you just feel like the crypto market needed this project? I think the answer is probably a combination of the last two for the most part.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because like I like money and I'd love to make money, but I have money. I don't have like unlimited money, right? But I mean, I'm comfortable and I have a great life. And so I did initially kind of come up with this because of what we said earlier. Like, this was what I wanted to invest in, but it didn't exist. And so as I continued to think about it, I was like, I'm going to have to will it into existence because no one's doing it for me. And so I think that there's a couple reasons why I'm doing it. I love this aspect to it. I love the idea of building a community, building something cool that's actually meaningful. I think people are going to really like this and that they're going to get behind it. And I'm really excited what this, what it can do when we do have a lot of really smart minds behind it. Because as you and I both know, Nexus, the people in this Discord are a lot smarter than you and I. But you definitely have the voice, man. I keep saying.
I am just a vessel for this community.
Wait, on a side note, you should definitely do like one of the sleep stories from Calm app. Have you ever heard of those?
Yes, I have actually. I've been asked to do some content where I'm just reading or reviewing and critiquing media. Yeah. And and I've thought about doing that. I've recorded a couple crypto parody songs as well, but that's neither here nor there.
I think you should absolutely share those immediately.
We will when there's more of them. Right now it's just me pumping up one of my favorite traders in the server, fluffing his ego, as the saying goes, as we say around here. I'm about to get made fun of because I use that language too. Just be ready for that.
I'm so excited. Yeah, it didn't slide past me. I hear you.
10th Hokage asks, who is auditing the Novo Smart Contract?
Currently it's Soken. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I'm hoping for Certic next. So,
okay. Arthex asks, will you introduce and describe more about the team members you have on Team NovoDeFi?
Yeah, sure. We have, we've got our community manager, Sam Legad, who's a great guy. We have our liquidity officer, who basically manages, I guess you could say, like liquidity depth, and from an economic perspective, will be pointing us in hopefully a lot of really smart directions with our decision making. You've got Benjamin, who's like the Solidity guru. He's our lead dev and really does absolutely everything. And then other than that, we have Valentin, who's our front end guy, who's really just a rock star. But yeah, I mean, feel free to go look these people up. And I think we're going to update our team page soon with LinkedIn's. I've shared my LinkedIn, but I know I know none of the others are on there. And then we've got one or two devs working for us that that are not doxed. And I say they're not doxed to the public, but they are doxed to me. And so they, at this point, and I don't even know if I should be saying this, but they've kind of received an ultimatum with the project.
Hey, ultimatums are real. They happen.
They happen, and so we do want, and I don't know if it's fair or not, right? Because like this is crypto and people are crazy. But again, we're trying to sort of be the first to do some hyper transparent stuff. And so if they're not doxed with us in the near future, then you can assume they don't work for Novo anymore.
Okay. Let's see.
And by the way, again, dox meaning publicly, like, hey, I'm involved in this project.
Yes.
Again, no one is anonymous that works for me, if that makes sense.
Yes. All right. Dear God of Disguise asks, when things are based on reflection or getting rewarded for holding, something is good when there's an influx of new users, presumably buyers, and once that is stagnant, the graphs drop drastically. How is Novo planning to manage that should it occur?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this earlier, but we do not do reflections. But I mean, maybe perhaps their theory is that. Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, it's essentially the user is pointing out that once buyers stop coming for a service, like we talked about a little bit earlier with rebases, where as long as you have new buyers, the APY is going to keep going up, but then when the project gets up to a point of stagnancy, then people are dumping, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, and yeah, so for starters, no, we don't do reflections. There's only staking rewards, but to that, it is a natural progression in a lot of projects. And so, for starters, you're not going to get around the fact that most projects that start gaining traction, they are going to over pump, right? Like there's always going to be a little bit of a come down. Now, again, the reason we built this and the entire premise of this being a volume-based protocol is for starters, right? If people are selling, okay, and because of the way temporal staking works, if a lot of people are selling, which means a lot of people are unstaking, your share of the staking rewards are going to be going way, way up. So the APY is high on really, really good growth volume days, but if the price is going down with heavy volume, you're still receiving a lot of rewards. And again, those rewards are real rewards. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that remember, you're hedged. So your balance, if you stay staked, is still and was still earning in a beefy finance vault. And I'm just going to keep using beefy finance because I'm being transparent. That is probably the first proxy growth mechanism we will use.
Okay.
So if you can think about it from that perspective, right? Like that's actually pretty healthy. There's nothing you can do about like, okay, I can't remember what I think it's 9,9. Like, yeah, if everyone's selling, the price is going to go down, and there's always going to be a little bit of that sort of that hype run up. But by being a volume-based protocol, we don't necessarily hate it. Like you shouldn't hate price going down if volume is high, if that makes sense. Now, in the long run, the protocol is not meant to depreciate though. The price of Novo, and I cannot say this, and this is not investment advice though, right? But like the price of Novo is designed to go up in the long run because of all the mechanisms that literally every mechanism that we talked about, right? The regenerative liquidity, the treasury buying back Novo and burning them, the tokens being burned in general, the liquidity provider fees being pumped into the staking contract. So like there's more than just one thing combating downward sell pressure. So yeah, I mean, this thing, it's got a better shot, as best a shot as any protocol out there at being super healthy, even in perhaps a bear market, maybe even thrives in a bear market.
That makes some sense to me, but I feel like I should call attention to a graph or the image pulled from your site that Smoker Thou just posted in chat, where part of the reward pipeline is directly indicated as being reflections on Novo coin to holders.
Yeah, that's an error that should be updated. And so going back to initially, the reward scheme was actually it was 1%. So I said 2% goes to stakers, 1% was going to go to stakers, and then 1% was going to go to reflections. And basically what that meant was if you're staked, you receive staking rewards plus reflections. So you're basically earning more than if you're just holding. And we decided to kill reflections altogether and just do staking rewards. We think it's just a way better call for the long run. And to be honest, I think that it's better because like people want to feel actively invested in a protocol. And by staking it, you're kind of like planting your flag in the sand, if you will. And then also the proxy growth that I'm talking about, right? The reinvestment and the Treasury's ability to do that. We can't do that if you're just holding and earning reflections. We can only do that through the staking mechanism. Okay. So I do. Yeah, I apologize. And like you may see some reflection stuff in the documentation, but
I did.
This whole thing is fluid, and I should have been maybe more transparent or cleared that up front. But yeah, those will hopefully, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be updated, but
it's okay. On occasion, we get projects come to us with sites that are in progress updating by the time they come to us. So when our people are going to the site, we're essentially operating on out-of-date information.
Yeah, but the last question, the person that was asking about reflections, if I may, here's the problem with reflections, and the reason we invented temporal staking the way that we did. If you think about reflections, the person that buys into a reflection protocol early gets a massive quantity of the supply, right? They're able to buy super early, and therefore they're a whale. So whales, as transactions happen, regardless if like the price is going up or down, as transactions happen, they're absorbing almost all of the reflections, or they're absorbing a disproportionate amount of the reflections. So if you think about that, whales are able to sell down their balance, whales are able to sell their reflections without reducing their balance
and make a ton of money.
Make a ton of money, and it creates this vicious cycle because you're a whale, you're getting reflections. You could sell those reflections every day for massive quantities. And not only are you not reducing your balance, so you're not forgoing your ability to earn those reflections in the future. But here's the other thing. You're also really hurting the price, or you're keeping the price stagnant, or you're even repressing the price. So reflection tokens, like all of them, right? They're not going to work because of this. And so that was almost one of the biggest driving factors behind temporal staking. Because if you think about this, when you lock your tokens in a smart contract for our staking contract, and let's assume that, you've staked for a long time and you've got, you've held or staked a lot longer than everyone, you're receiving a really good portion of the rewards. At some point, naturally, you're going to take profits, right? And to do that, you're going to have to unstake either your whole balance or part of it. When you unstake a small part of your balance, you're resetting your time staked. And then everyone else that has been staking and holding longer actually moves up the list. It's almost like a gamified version of holding, if you will. So all the people that say, yeah, I have diamond hands, I can truly hodl. Well, we're actually going to find out if you can.
On that note, Wolf MVP has a question about the treasury funds. How are the treasury funds going to be used? And are the decisions taken by staff alone, or will holders have a say?
Yeah, so, holders are always going to have a say. And so I think right now it's probably important to note, if you go look up the Treasury contact address. I think it's in the documentation. If it's not, we'll send it to you. It's a Gnosis safe, like I mentioned earlier. you're going to see, let's just say I think it's 53% of the supply. So again, I want to reiterate, that is not Novo that can be sold or used, right? That is purely being held to move to other chains for when we make that move. So the treasury, I think it has a balance of like, let's just call it $1,500 in BNB. So earlier when I described the transactions happening, right, the volume, 0.5% of those transactions go to the volume. That's essentially the only way the treasury is earning right now. So the treasury has to start stockpiling money, and that happens with volume. Because again, and I hope everyone's following this, but we own our own liquidity and we earn money from that as well. But we're also have our liquidity locked for 6 months. So we can't access those funds. In 6 months, people are going to be begging for us not to lock our liquidity. I can guarantee it, because they're going to want us to be able to use it for everything from staking rewards to, okay, this is kind of getting into their actual question. Yeah. What does the treasury do? But that's a little insight into what the current state of the treasury is. But the treasury itself, it does those actions that we talked about, right? Proxy growth. So it's automatically, and it's not using its own funds, but it's reinvesting stakers' funds, and then the PRMs, which were the price recovery mechanisms. And so we may look at we may hit a certain threshold, right? Like the treasury may hit a certain threshold, and we can ask the community, hey, community, we're going to buy this amount of Novo from the market. Do you want us to reduce? Do you want us to release it to stakers, or do you want us to burn it? And probably most people are always going to say we want to receive it in staking, but at times we will burn it because it's pretty healthy and it's obviously doesn't create any downward sell pressure. Which whenever you release more rewards, rather, even if they're not necessarily like if they're real, basically what I'm saying, people are going to sell them just because, right? That's like icing on the cake. So. Long-winded way of saying the treasury basically performs PRMs, price recovery mechanisms, and then the treasury's sole goal, the reason it exists, is to earn wealth as best it can. So if it does have an excess, it will be participating in yield vaults alongside the stakers.
Okay. All right, let me get back to my questions here, bouncing all over the place as always. All right.
Great.
Filico Mafia is back. They're asking if you have plans to reduce the tax percentage of 5% to a lesser amount, something like 2% maybe.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So no plans now. The tax, by the way, is only on buying and selling. And so the transferring it would be a 2% tax. What's really cool, and I don't know, there may be a few people out there that don't love this. We started with a proxy contract. And so are you familiar with those, by the way?
Vaguely, not intimately.
Yes. Yeah, no, like, to be honest, like, the actual technicalities behind it, I'm not even that familiar with. But, right, like, in essence, what it means is that we can change little aspects of our smart contract, like the tax rate, without having to deploy. We can actually change a couple things without having to redeploy a new smart contract. So I'm sure you've seen projects, even like Olympus and all these, everyone's always at some point having to migrate to a V2. And it's a real pain in the ass. This should allow us to not ever have to do that. So an example being, let's say that we wanted to keep the 5% tax on selling, but we decided as a community that we can drive more volume and get more people invested by lowering the tax, right, down to 2% on buys. We can do that. Or we may get to a point where, hey, there's no transaction fee on staking, but everyone may collectively say, I think we should have a 1% tax on staking or maybe unstaking, because again, it's driving more volume. And if you can hold longer, you're going to get more. So not only can we change little aspects like that, but we can also introduce new tiers, right? So if we wanted to implement a lower tax for a particular utility, maybe it's credit card activity, maybe it's Novo Pay, right? We can implement different tiers of tax for different either ecosystem products or external products. So everything's fluid. Everything can be changed. And to answer the question, basically, no, we don't have any intention of changing the tax right now. Will we in the future? Maybe.
Okay. Fairtaste asks, a major problem for DeFi is liquidity. Do you guys have any solutions to the liquidity DeFi problem that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll find this in the documentation, but like, I think at the heart of everything we should do, and one of the most important aspects is liquidity. And so that's the entire reason we have what we call regenerative liquidity. So we could give out more rewards if we wanted to lower the liquidity side of the tax. But I don't think we're going to do that until we just have outstanding liquidity numbers. So I think a better metric for evaluating a protocol's health would be, rather than tying it to like assets in the treasury, I honestly think it's more important to look at liquidity, and like maybe it's a factor of, outstanding tokens to liquidity or market cap to liquidity. I think we're going to see a big transition in the way that we evaluate protocols. So yeah, liquidity is as important as it gets for us, and we are I mean, one of the only tokens that I know of in DeFi that is actively regenerating its own liquidity and places it on such a high pedestal.
Okay. Dear God of Disguise, again, let's say the whole thing, as in Novo, is based on DeFi, but there are some countries that are planning to ban decentralized finance and focused on centralized exchanges because they are trackable. Does Novo have any plans in that department?
Right. So that's a loaded question.
Yes, it is. We get some on occasion.
Well, what I'll say, and this is kind of like more like macro perspective, I'd say. But inherently, what's wrong with a protocol like this and its ability to interact with a centralized exchange is that the tokenomics don't work, right? So like if this thing gets listed on Coinbase, the 5% tax is not able to be executed. It's not able to be distributed where it needs to go across the blockchain in order for the protocol to work. But here is what's super important and why it still makes sense to get listed on centralized exchanges, whereas it doesn't necessarily make sense for like maybe an Olympus DAO or something along those lines, is that, again, because we're a volume-based product, our goal is to, backing up, right? Like, we care about price appreciation, right? So like Olympus and those rebase type protocols, they don't care necessarily about the price going up. So they really don't have an incentive to get listed on a centralized exchange. But if we can get listed on a centralized exchange and people in countries that aren't necessarily able to buy because of DeFi limitations, like perhaps you can still enjoy what we hope is going to be price appreciation, because that's the goal here too. And then not only on top of that, but with larger central exchanges, right? Like you can still transfer out, and automatically bots are still going to do this. So let's say that you're driving a ton of volume to a centralized exchange. We may not see direct benefit from that, but the price is going to go up even on the decentralized exchanges, and arbitrage is naturally going to happen across them. People are going to transfer in and out of big exchanges. And again, anything that creates volume is really good for us in the long run. So yeah, I see, Novo not necessarily being stuck in DeFi. I see it working cohesively with central finance and hopefully eventually driving as much volume as possible. I'll constantly say that volume. But to it, we won't do anything to break the law in any countries that ban DeFi. And honestly, DeFi is just a word. Like, you don't necessarily have to think of what we do. I mean, what we do is, I mean, think about it as crypto in general, really. Like, I don't see a world, I envision a future where we expand beyond DeFi and what we do. But right now, it is the heart of what we're doing.
Okay. EC is back. They ask if there will be things like hardware or paper wallets associated with Novo.
Hardware or pay? No. That's another thing where people put everything on the roadmap. We're not good at that stuff, and we're gonna let the companies that are really good at that handle that.
Okay.
So no, not now. And I also never say never, but I would say probably never.
Okay. Solidium. The burn rate seems to be fixed. With inflation in currencies constantly changing, eventually it may be needed to also change the burn rate. If this is the case, how could that be done in a way that A, is transparent so people could instantly see the new burn rate if they wanted to, and B, takes a while to adjust to ensure that a developer can't just insta-change the burn rate overnight without anyone knowing that it happened?
Yeah, I think that any changes in the burn rate will obviously be community sourced, right? Because it's not our goal to do something at the expense of protocol health. So like it wouldn't make sense for us to adjust the burn to like an unmanageable level or even like to reduce the burn. Now, what is kind of interesting is that like, we didn't make the burn, and this is what they said, we didn't make the burn like a factor of reflections, meaning we didn't create a burn wallet and send tokens there, therefore it receives I guess like reflections because we're doing staking rewards. So yeah, it is a fixed fee, which in my opinion is a lot better because we can change it to whatever we want. So answering that question, we won't change the burn. We probably won't change the burn for a very long time. I think it's probably at a stable number. But if it's going too quickly, or perhaps it's not going fast enough, or maybe something in between, community sourced will sort of community source that. But again, we're not a DAO. There's not going to be any voting on it. But again, we don't want to do things at the detriment of our own protocol. So you would think that we would do the logical thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think transparency, again, like y'all can tell, I'm being very transparent. That type of stuff would be super transparent. And then obviously, writing up good documentation on why and making sure the community is well educated is just needed, not only for our project. I think more education is needed everywhere.
Always. I'm all about that life. Fair Dave UA asks, can you introduce us to Novo Pay? Are there differences with other payment schema in the market, availability, fees, legal system, etc.?
Yeah, so we touched on it a little bit earlier, but Novo Pay, essentially, yeah, you're going to have fees the same. Like if you've bought crypto with like a fiat on ramp, just think like Wire or Simplex or MoonPay or whatever, you're going to have your transaction fees. So we don't control that. That is what it is. Eventually, I hope we can work with partners and providers that offer the best and the lowest fees. And if we can offer more volume, we can negotiate that ourselves. But other than that, you're going to see really small transaction fees coming from the Novo Protocol as well. That's baked into it. But like as far as Novo in general goes, I don't know if perhaps maybe they missed that part of the AMA, but I could just recap it again really simply. Novo Pay allows you to buy a token that's listed on a DEX without having to go through the entire process of swapping. So you can use your credit card and buy $500 worth of Novo directly from our DApp. And basically what's happening behind the scenes is we're still maintaining centralization. So we're actually buying BNB. We're doing all that stuff and setting the slippage, and we're swapping it in real time automatically. So you don't have to see it. And again, most people here, they're used to that. Like we can all do that, but 99.5% of the population, probably even more, has no clue how to do that. And they're not going to do it. And so how can we get people to adopt early stage crypto projects that aren't listed on large central exchanges if nobody can buy it? So that's the goal.
Okay. 10th Hokage quotes a part of, I believe, the white paper or the site talking about the Treasury. Quote, "The Treasury receives a small percentage of each transaction and is immediately converted to BNB," end quote. Why not go for an end currency that's more stable than BNB?
Yeah, I think we will. That was just sort of hey, let's launch the contract. It's the liquidity pairing is BNB, so it's just easier. I think that eventually what we'll do is on each chain we'll hold in and perhaps a stable coin on a particular chain, or we can eventually, once all the chain agnosticism set up, we can actually swap and hold stable coins regardless of what chain it was on. I guess that doesn't, I don't know if that's a good way of putting it, but yeah, I think they're right. I think it would be better to hold a stable coin, and that's something that we'll do right now. To be honest, I think that everything BNB is included is underpriced. I think that we're coming out a little bit. So I do think that the treasury and the liquidity pool itself obviously has to be BNB because that's the pair. But I think that we can see some appreciation in the short term. So were we in a different circumstance? Yeah, I think we would have already switched it to a stable. And again, going back to the proxy contract and stuff like that, we can be adaptable and change stuff like that.
Okay. Dear God of Disguise asks, why not Polygon? We kind of touched on other chains earlier. I'm pretty sure Polygon's on your list.
Yes. Yeah. So why not Polygon? I agree. Let's do Polygon. I want to do it as quick as possible.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
Yeah, just to the cross-chain stuff is like so important. I don't know that people really fully understand what having really strong amounts of liquidity across multiple chains is going to accomplish, but it's going to open up a world of utility far beyond what we've talked about, and I think even far beyond what I'm even expecting or can plan for. So if you say do Polygon, I'm right there with you. I'm ready. I mean, any really good chain, and there's a lot of them now, we want to do. Like, we want them all. And so, heck yeah, Polygon for sure.
Okay. One sec, I had to tab away from my questions. All right, there we go. Okay. Filico Mafia has a question about specifically a yield protocol called Beefy Finance that has a 4-figure APY on a newly launched token and sometimes more than 40% on well-established projects. But you just stated that Novo's estimated to have about 15% returns. What aspect of Novo might attract investors in these other protocols to stake with Novo instead?
Yeah, so actually what you're just saying is like, I don't know if maybe they didn't understand this. So we don't know the APY on Novo Protocol directly, right? And if that person can give us an example, maybe they can type it real quick, of what the vault is or what the pair is that they're talking about. Now imagine that you're receiving your rewards from Novo Protocol and you're in that vault, I guess. What I'm saying is we would prefer to put you in a vault that's a little safer and lower yields, because we really don't want to get into a position where we are if we have to collateralize staked Novo in order to invest it, we don't want to get into a position where we're losing people's money, if that makes sense. So like this is again more about stability. Could you like swap in and out of vaults that and more potentially like speculative vaults and make more APY? I don't know, but again, this is supposed to be like relatively safe, and I think it'll still be higher because you're double dipping, you're getting both.
Okay,
does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's weird. It's weird doing these and answering questions, but then like the person can't give you feedback. So it's like,
Well, it's okay. No, there. Just keep an eye on chat. The users will be giving you live feedback in chat if anything you're saying is problematic to them.
I was sorry. I was browsing the web. I'll do that.
Dear God is back. They seem to feel that calling your payment system Novopay is a misnomer. They call it fiat conversion. Why are you calling it Novopay?
Wait, sorry. Who's calling it fiat conversion?
Oh,
what was the
Dear God of Disguise says that if Novopay is just a system to trade fiat for crypto, then it's just a fiat conversion protocol. It's not a payment platform. He finds that to be a misnomer.
Yeah, it's marketing. It is what Here's what you can do. You can pay with a credit card to get Novo.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you look at technicalities, sure, maybe we've misnamed everything, but we want it to be pretty obvious, and it's naming something's marketing, right? I hear them totally. But yeah, this is more about giving and we don't want to call it our innovative product fiat converter protocol 2.0 is launched. Maybe that sounds better. I don't know.
And it runs on Web3 with Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse involved. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we could get really, really technical with our naming.
And I should point out, Filico Mafia did give some feedback on that previous answer. The one about the liquidity farming. He points out the Phantom USDT liquidity pair that has an above 75% APY.
Yeah. So I would imagine. Yeah. Well, whatever. Again, with somewhat of managed risk. Yeah. I just imagine you're in that vault, but you're also not having to sacrifice your ability to be invested in Novo, right? So, and I haven't even touched on this, but that's just a pro rata share. So assume if you have $1,000, and again, this is the overall goal, but if you have $1,000 invested in Novo and you're generating really solid returns, right, from the Novo protocol, and hopefully you're experiencing really good price appreciation, but also you have $1,000 worth of value locked into that exact vault that he's talked about, and all of three of these things are working with each other to compound on themselves. And then additionally, any excess income from liquidity, like I mentioned, and the treasury's share of the fee are also being reinvested, not necessarily 100% for the treasury, but also partially for stakers. So when I say there's rewards coming in so many ways, it's hard to talk about. It actually is really hard to talk about because it is like they're coming in from a lot of different ways. It is going to be a challenge, and a really good question for people would be to ask the mechanics of actually executing all this, because we're not doing it right now and we have a pretty good idea of how we're going to do it, but that's pretty fluid. That could change whether we directly collateralize your staked value in order to reinvest, whether we edit the contract to be able to convert, right? So if you stake your Novo, we convert it to a stable coin and hit a vault. That's something we can do as well. So it's all going to be about really doing what's optimal from a gas perspective. And then again, we don't want to just go pick the highest yield vault, right? We are here to manage risk. And so maybe you'll outperform that vault simply because you're in two protocols and not just the higher vault.
Okay. We're getting near the end. We don't have that much left. All right.
Great.
Seth Elton asks, for an exchange as large as Abra, for example, which has a token used for staking on exchange similar to Crow on Crypto.com, if you own the token, you will receive more rewards. However, unlike Crow, Abra saw its token plummet 95% in value since launch. In that same time, Crow has tripled. What path do you see for Novo? People selling their rewards for passive income like Abra, or long-term holders for more passive income like Crow? In addition, YDLY also rewards those who stake a higher APY if they continue to hold without selling. Would you implement such a system for Novo?
Yeah, so that last part, right? The incentivizing hold, we are doing that. That's temporal staking, right? The longer you hold, the higher share of rewards you're going to get. And then to that the second question, like the reason people selling just their rewards in a typical staking mechanism is because, remember, those rewards were just minted out of thin air. They're not backed by anything, and they're not real tangible money. So it's almost like a double whammy. You're not only giving someone tokens that have no actual value, but you're giving them an opportunity to sell those tokens as if they have value. So that's why you see such massive drops in pricing. And that's also why this protocol is the antithesis of that once again, right? Does that make sense? So by earning rewards from a volume-based protocol, right, the rewards themselves are real. I can't, there's nothing you can do to prevent people from selling those rewards. But here's what happens if they do want to sell them. They have to unstake and then decide how much to sell. When they sell, they're just generating more rewards for everyone else. And by unstaking, they've essentially just said, oh, I'm resetting my time. Everyone else is going to even be earning a greater share. So yeah, I mean, it's not only, it's solving for both of those things that they just said. So yeah, I think it's more of a long-term hold like Crow. And to be honest, I've been playing around. I think it'd be pretty cool to, what if our second chain was Chronos, because they have a DeFi wallet, and that may be a good way to get listed on a very big exchange and potentially have it maintain its decentralized nature within their wallet. If it can be held there, we can maintain the tokenomics as well. So there's an angle there, and I actually like Crow from that perspective. But yeah, it's a long hold. It's absolutely nothing like Abracadabra.
Okay. Just a couple more. Dear God of Disguise back. Why would large companies want to mint on your platform? How are you planning to bring them in?
Yeah, again, I didn't even want to talk about this because it's so far in the future. But I mean, my background is, if you think about what I've done, it's building SaaS products and selling to enterprises in particular. And I happen to be a fairly well connected person, which is neither here nor there. But the idea, and the same reason you can sell to any customer like that, is to make the process easy, self-serve, easy. It's not like it's going to cost them a lot of money to use something like this. And I really don't think that, maybe some of them do, but I don't think that really large companies are going to build out their own infrastructure. No one builds out their own infrastructure for anything anymore, right? They've got a tool and a solution for everything. This would just be another one of those tools that they use. And it just so happens to be a tool that helps them. I mean, it's an easy sell. It helps them generate more income, right? Because I'll go back to the Rolex example, right? Let's say Rolex uses Novo, and the product doesn't necessarily have to be directly associated. Let's say they use Novo, and they have it tied to their production. So when they create a certificate of authenticity for a new Rolex, they can use the portal in a semi-automatic way and mint the NFTs. But there's going to be parameters, and there's going to be stuff that they want to do in particular, right? Every time a Rolex is bought and sold, even in a secondary market, they can earn royalties and stuff from that. So regardless of how cool it is for them, it's my guess that they're not going to want to build all of that infrastructure and invest all of this money when they can simply use a service like ours. And again, little small transactions are running Novo behind the scenes. So it's so far, again, it's so far out there that like it's almost not necessarily worth talking about. But I do enjoy the creative aspects of some of the, I call it our moonshot factory. Because we've got something really cool, and we wouldn't have time to talk about it, but we're doing something really cool. It's kind of secretive, which I think is fun.
Well,
in the
hey,
real estate space, so
there's nothing wrong with you coming back and telling us more, brother.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I think if and when it's time to talk about that, I'll definitely be back. We'll have another chat, and hopefully we'll have some more clarity to some of the open-ended questions. But like I said,
love that.
Novo's so new. It's a couple weeks old, and even then it was in stealth mode. So, I'm just happy to share what we're doing, and if people believe in what we're doing, pop over to our Discord and join the conversation, and let's build something cool.
All right, final question from the community, from Filico Mafia. What are your thoughts on Novo's performance during the market dip? I saw some coins who were bullish even during market fall downs. Will Novo get along like that, do you think? Now, it's worth noting, asking a project leader to price speculate when he's bullish about his own project is a somewhat loaded question. However, I will note that because Novo hasn't been around very long, it may not have had time to judge its own performance in a bear market.
Yeah, there's no... I mean, to be honest, right, in the past 3 months, we've not been around, right? Like if you go look at our price chart, actually, I'll link it here in a sec. Go look at our price chart. It looks like a monster just going up constantly. I'm not referring to price. I'm just being honest. And so I don't think we were truly tested because of our timing, right? But I will say this, if Bitcoin's going down, mostly everything's going down, right? So like, I think what you can judge a really good protocol by is it going down less proportionately or than directly one-to-one with Bitcoin, right? So we wouldn't know. The price is only appreciated thus far. So I guess we'll be tested soon, or perhaps in the next maybe correction, not sure. And obviously, I can't really speculate beyond that.
No worries. And with that, that's the conclusion of all of the community questions for now. And awesome. Before we count ourselves out, I would like to offer you, Professor Hodl, the opportunity to help us decide at least 3 of our best question winners, if you were interested.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I wish... shoot. I don't quite recall.
No, you don't. You don't necessarily have to recall them all. Are you on a computer?
Yeah, of course. Yep.
If you will look at the top of the text chat, you will see a little push pin. Any of the users, including users whose questions I did not answer or were previously answered, are all eligible to be chosen.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, where's the chat? I'm going to sound like such an...
Arthix just supplied a healthy graphic in the chat. It would be the wolf microphone heart. Cyben's also just tagged you in the channel.
Oh, I see. Yes, of course.
Yes, so at the top of that...
I wasn't looking at the chat the whole time. I probably should have.
That's okay.
I see it in messages.
Yeah, you don't have to check or think back about all the stuff we asked. All of the questions that I pulled from the community are pinned in this channel. So you can just go through. Obviously, each user can only win one time. However, everyone is eligible.
Yep, I am. Give me just a moment. Let's see here. All right. Talk about this. Smoker Thou had a great question about ARL, POL, and PRM, which I thought was great because it obviously meant he read the documentation. So let's throw some bones that way.
You got it. Winner number 1 is Smoker Thou.
The Only Lonely Wolf. I liked them asking why BSC because I love answering and being transparent about that for sure. That's definitely a good one.
Good choice.
Let's also do, and so we got a third.
Yes, We offer 3.
See?
The final 2, we use team discretion. Try to keep it as even as possible.
Yeah. Let's do the question. Someone asked a good question about liquidity. Fairtes, Fertes.
And winner number 3 is Fairtes.
And yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, this was so
awesome.
fun, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I know it is always a pleasure to have teams like this come up and like projects like yours to come up and talk to us. I learn so much every time I do this. I feel like every time I'm sort of in class in a sense, and I'm just leading a discussion.
Yeah, well, you're really good at it, and it's funny because I was listening to some of the others and like some of the NFT projects and like that, and I was like, God, some of this stuff is way out of my element. I'm just going to stick to DeFi and what I know. So I commend you on your ability to moderate not across all the weirdness of crypto as well. So,
amen.
Yeah, man. Thanks again. I'll be around in y'all's Discord, of course, and then if anyone has any questions, feel free to just DM me.
Absolutely. We appreciate you coming. This has been another AMA with the Wolves of Wall Street. We presented NovoDeFi, a very interesting volume-based liquidity pooling apparatus that has many, many other associated tools, including but not limited to NFT minting. It's certain to be a hot up-and-comer in the next few months, I'm sure, as people discover it. My name is Nexus. It has been, as always, a pleasure to host this conversation for everyone. I hope everyone felt like their questions were answered well, and if they weren't, I apologize. We can't always get to everyone in perfect order. Nothing that you heard during this program is to be construed as financial advice, and as always, represents only the opinions of the speakers, not necessarily the opinions of the entirety of the community of Wolves of Wall Street or of Novo Finance.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys. Cheers.